In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to LINQ, and then we're going to do some programming examples so you can understand this query language. So LINQ is a query language that is unique to Microsoft languages, such as C# and Visual Basic. It's similar to what you would know in SQL if you are a SQL programmer. It's used to select different pieces of data from a list or from some other data source. Now think of the different ways that you'll be accessing data as an application developer. You might be talking directly to a SQL database, and so you'll have to learn how to write SQL statements. You might have a way to parse an XML document. So you might have a library that is allowing you to go through and piece out each field, each tag. Then you might have an ORM, where you have an object relational mapper program, such as the entity framework in C#. That also has its own querying. You have to select different items, and there's a language that goes with that. With REST APIs, you probably have to have some kind of a JSON parser. So all of these are going to be slightly different in how they are queried. And LINQ provides you with a single type of language that you can learn, and that also is able to interface with all these quite easily. And so the result that most programmers are after is to get a list of objects that they can then go through in a loop and query. Now, if we were to combine them all into one type of language, you would come up with LINQ. And so if you're a C# developer, LINQ will be your interface to many different data sources. So LINQ queries are giving you results of items that are in a list of objects. So when you're done, you don't have to worry about parsing things such as different text fields or columns in a database. You just have a list of objects to work with, which is really the end goal if you're the programmer. So the database goes through a LINQ query, and then the LINQ query translates into a list of objects. So let's take a look at an example. So let's start with a very simple database source, not even a database. Let's just give it a list of strings. So we have some people's names. A LINQ query could look like this, such as we want to show all of the people who have a letter A in their name. So as you can see, it looks kind of like a SQL query. It's not SQL though, it's LINQ. We're going to get a result set from this query. So we have a from, in, where, and then finally a select item. So a select item might include the name, or if it were more than one property in a list of objects, you could select multiple properties. So if you know SQL, then you can probably learn LINQ. What you have to do after your LINQ query is done, you're going to have some kind of an execution. So you're going to have to go through the query using a for loop or a foreach loop or something of the like. So this is an example, and then we'll code some more in just a few minutes. What is a result set? So a result set is a query result. It's not a list, it's not an object, it's a bunch of things called a result set. You can execute it in multiple ways, and as I showed you earlier, we use the foreach loop. The foreach loop gives the result set in object format. So here's some general principles that we're going to see. So every LINQ statement must have some kind of a data source. So in the previous example, the data source was an array of strings. In examples that we're going to do further along, we're going to talk to databases. Also, we're going to say that every LINQ query must be executed. You have to do something with it to get the results. And so up next, what we're going to do is do some coding in Visual Studio to see how this works. So now let's switch over into Visual Studio and we'll start some coding here. So we'll code a few examples of how to use LINQ. So let's start up a new project, and then we will begin with some standard lists. So we're going to make a console app, and we'll use the standard application in C#.NET. Then I'm going to put in a list of scores in my program. So let's delete whatever's there and then put in an integer array. I'm going to call it scores. So think of test scores that you would get on a 100-point exam. So a bunch of integers. We want a variety of numbers here from 0 to 100, and it looks like we should have at least 15, maybe 20. Go ahead and make a bunch of these, because the better or the longer your list is and the wider the variety, the better the query results will represent what we're trying to accomplish. Now the first thing I want to do is just to print the results so we can see what our scores were. So let's make a for each loop. So you type in foreach and tab, and that will give you a shortcut to make the loop. So the item is the counter variable, and the list that we're going to query through is the array called scores. Now for each score, we're going to do a write line. So CW tab will also give you a shortcut. And we'll say one of the scores was, and then we'll put in a item, or the item, and that will print it there for us. And then finally we need to put a pause statement in so we can actually see the results before the application closes. So let's run this and see what kind of results we get. Hopefully it's not too surprising. So there you have it. We have a list of scores, and it says one of the scores was, and it prints out the score value. So far we haven't done anything with LINQ yet, but we are just proving that we can query through the list. So now let's do some linking. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to do a filter to show all of the students that scored a 90 or better than 90. So the syntax is like this. We're going to make a list, and I'm going to name it the best students. And the syntax goes like this. We're going to say from item in scores. Now, item can be any variable you need, but scores is the name of our list. We're going to say where item is greater than 90, which is an A or better in my gradebook. And then we're going to select that item. Then after we've got the select done, we're going to print it again. So let's copy and paste from the previous for loop, and we will print only the best scores this time. So we will go through the for loop, and we'll do item as an item of the best students list instead of every list. And then we'll slightly change the string so that way it says one of the highest scores was, and then we'll print the individual score. Now you can also see that we have to import something. We have to import the LINQ library. So that way it knows what we're talking about here. So the scores variable is underlined in red, and when we import LINQ, that is fixed. Okay, it's time to run it again. Let's take a look at the console read and make sure we have that at the bottom. So that way we have another pause. Let's run it and see what we get. So the results show up, and we have the first loop that goes and prints. So it says one of the scores was. Now it's waiting for a read line, so I'm going to press the return key, and this time it prints the second loop. And now when I get this one, it says one of the best scores was, and you can see that everything that it selected was greater than. Next up, let's use the select statements now to order our list. So for this one, I'm just going to take the entire original list and sort it from top down. So we're going to say our variable, our list name, is called sorted scores. And so we'll say from item in scores, order by item. And then we will select item. Then finally, we'll print it again. So let's do the same for loop. I can copy and paste that from a previous example and modify it. So we're going to go from item in sorted scores this time and print each of them. And then finally, we'll do a read line so that way the program pauses and lets us see our results. Let's run this and see what happens. So here's the first results, one of the scores, and shows all of the items in their original order. Then the next one was to show the top items. And then the third one shows up, and it is shown in a sorted order. So you can see it goes from 0 to 100. Not quite what I was after. I wanted to sort it from top down, but we got a sorted list. If I want top down, I can probably change that here where it says order by item, and I'm going to slip in a word descending, and let's see what that does. So the first results show the list. Then the second results, when I press enter, will show us the second sorted list of only the best scores. And then the third one shows the ordered list, and this time it starts at 100 and ends at 0. So I reversed the order. All right, so let me give you a challenge now. So you've seen the ability to select items, the ability to sort them. Let's see if you can do something a little bit more of an extension. So I showed you all the A students before with a greater than symbol, greater than 90. Now I'm going to ask you to do something that would show us the B students. So the B students are in a range. They are from 80 to 90. And I also would like you to show them in ascending order from the lowest to the highest. So there's your challenge. Use a select statement and print off a portion of the list, then show all of the 80 percentile students. All right, now we're going to move on and make another project. What I'm going to demonstrate next is a list of objects, not just a list of integers. And so let's make a new project. make a console app, and I'm going to name it LINQ Actors because I'm going to give you a list of actors and their various salaries and their movies that they made. All right, so now let's make a new class. So right-click in the project area, choose Add an Item, and the class that we're going to call is Actor. So the properties that we'll set up for each actor are going to be a bunch of data that we can manipulate and search for. So the first thing I'm going to do is set a string as the first property and give it a name. The second property is a decimal, which is his total or her total gross earnings over their career. The next one is an integer, which is the number of movies that they starred in. So we'll call that movie count. And then we'll have another one called decimal, which is their average per movie. So this is their average amount of money they made per movie. Then we'll have a string for the name of the top movie that they were in. And then finally, we'll have another decimal, which will be the top movie gross of how much money that movie made. And so we'll get some information from, I think it's Wikipedia, and we will fill in a list of data from some of the famous actors that you may know. All right, the next thing that I'm going to make is called a ToString method. So one way to do this is to right-click on the class title, the class actor name, and choose the quick selections or quick coding things. And what I want to choose next is the overrides, selecting the ToString method. And that generates a generic ToString method that I can modify. Now, it's not much to it. You could just have written that as well, but I just showed you the shortcut. Now, also, we want to change this so that it actually supplies a list of all the properties. So I'm going to return the name of my actor. And then I'm going to use a bunch of ternary operators to return either the value of the item, or if the item doesn't have a value, then I'm going to return a null statement. So the total gross, I'm going to ask, is this equal to 0? If it is not equal to 0, then return the string total gross concatenated with its actual value called total gross. If it is equal to 0, then we'll return the null value. Now we'll add another piece to this. So we're going to concatenate a whole bunch of strings. So the next one is for movie count. So if movie count is not equal to 0, then return the movie count value. If it is equal to 0, then return the null value. The next one down is going to be the average per movie. See if that's equal to 0 or not. And then return the appropriate piece. The next one down is the top movie. And so top movie is a string. So we'll check to see if the string value is null or not. And then return that as well, is if it exists. And then the last one here is the top movie gross. And then that is a equal to 0 or not question. And then at the very, very end, we will put in a new line character, which is a /n. And so when you put all these together, you will have one string that will provide a way to print out all of the properties of an object. And so this also checks to see if a value is null or not, or 0 or not. And then it'll include it if it is conditionally met. Now I'm going to provide a list of data that we can work with. So let's switch into the main program. And I provided you something in GitHub. If you would like to copy and paste it, you can. It's a list of all the actors. I think I pulled all this information from Wikipedia. And so I've put this string together so you can copy and paste it because it's a lot of data. So now here at the bottom of the list, I'm going to create a new item, literally at the bottom of the list of strings. I'm going to create a list of type actor, so the class actor. And a good name for this is actor list. And let's make a new list so it's instantiated. So next I want to generate a list of something called a J array. So J array would be for JSON, and it's a data type that we're going to have to import through a library. So I'm just going to give this list name a value like A for a name. And then we're going to parse this data that we've got here. So this is a JSON formatted list. If you haven't noticed, it's nicely printed one item per line, but if you were to show this in a JSON formatted text display, it would actually be JSON. And so then after we import the library, you notice I spelled parse as prass, so I'm going to rename that. And now all the underlines should disappear, and we should have a valid statement. All right, now I'm going to go through this list of items and actually create objects. So we're not using LINQ right now. We're just showing you the process of how you would parse this if you directly read the JSON data. So what we want to do is a foreach loop and just say for each item in A. And then we're going to create a new actor. So I'll call him actor with a lowercase a. And now we're going to have to generate all of the properties for this actor. So the first thing is name, which is going to come from the array of position 0, item 0. And so you can see that each item in the list is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. Now you have to add a cast. So the cast is going to say the type of data that name is a string. And so the explicit cast is going to translate the item into the proper data type. So then we're going to go through the rest of these. So total gross, when we cast that, it's going to be a decimal, and he's at position 1. And then the next one is the movie count, which is in position 2. And movie count is going to be cast into an integer. And then the average per movie is the next one, which is, position 3. And that becomes a decimal. And then the top movie is a string, which comes from position 4. And then the last item, which is position 5, is going to be a decimal, which is the top movie gross. So that will be the casting of each item in the objects that we're parsing. And so you can see there's some translation going on here that we won't have to do with LINQ, hopefully. Now the next part is to add that final item. So we have an actor, and we want to add it to the actor list. So it's actorList.add, and then the variable inside the parentheses. And so now we should have a list of actors. Finally, after we're done here, let's go ahead and check to make sure we got enough, got all the people in there. So I'm just going to print out the count of the value of the list. So it won't print the entire list, it'll just show what one metric is. So it's the count method. And then we'll do a read line so that way it pauses. Let's run this and see how it looks. And hopefully we see a number of people that are in our list. Okay, so the application ran, and it does tell me that the actors count is 50. So looks like this data sample had 50 items in it. Okay, so now we're going to demonstrate how to sort the list using just standard for loops and if statements. So this is not LINQ yet, but will be soon. So let's create a list of items, or let's go through the for loop of items, and we're going to check to see if the total gross earnings for the actor is greater than 4,000. So these are represented as thousands of millions. So this would be $400 million. So if this is a rich actor, then we're going to add them to a list. So let's generate a list called rich actors of type actor, and we'll generate it as an empty list to start with. Then inside the for loop, we're going to add the item called item to that list of rich actors. Then finally, after we're done with this, we should have a list of the select elite actors. Now let's print them. So we'll create an item called print list, and we'll generate another function here just to keep things in a short, concise way here inside the main loop. So for the rich actors, we're just going to go through each item in the list and print them and use the console write line. And then I think we have to return a true value because it's expecting a success. Okay, so now let's make sure that we can do all this. We're going to select the rich actors, print them, and then wait for a console read line. So here it goes. Let's test it out. So I run the program, and the first thing you notice, we have a actor count of 50. And then I press enter, and then we have the number of items or number of people that have a high gross earnings. And so it looks like Harrison Ford and Samuel Jackson, Morgan Freeman, and Tom Hanks are the richest actors with a total gross larger than $400 million. All right, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get another selection, but we're going to use the LINQ syntax this time. So for this, I'm going to call this list as rich actors 2, and I'll just define it as a var, so it's more flexible. So the selection here is from actor in actor list. So actor list is the name of the list above us. I'm going to do a select statement where the actor.total gross is greater than 4,000, and then we'll select the actor, that item. And then we can try to print it again. So I'll just copy and paste the previous statements about who makes more than $400 million. And now you can see print list has a problem when we do rich actors 2 as the parameter. So to fix that, I'm going to go into the parameters down here on line is at 116 and switch it from a list only to an I enumerable. So that way it can handle multiple types of things, not just lists. And it looks like all of the data types must be matching. There's no underlines and no angry messages. So let's run it and see what happens. Okay, it looks like the app is running. I got my first initial count of 50. So I press enter and I show that the actors that are earning more than 400 million. Let's press enter again and we get the exact same list. The only difference between these lists is that one of them is using the LINQ syntax and the other one is using just the standard for loop. And so you can use either one in your coding. However, the LINQ syntax, as you can see, is somewhat shorter. All right, and I'm going to show you yet another way that you could do this selection. This is called a Lambda statement. A lambda is a function that's inside of a where clause. So what does this look like? Well, let's make a rich actors 3 list. And this is going to be the actor list dot where. And then in parentheses, we're going to create its own standalone function. So this function is called a lambda function. It's just a shorthand form of a regular function. So every item in the list will go through this filter. So the filter says assign the actor the variable a, the parameter a. And we're going to filter out to say a is total gross is greater than 4,000. That means if this statement is true, if this property is true for this one, it will add it to the list. And so this is a one-line statement that does the exact same thing as the selections that we showed above. Let's prove it, make sure it works. So let's print it out, and we should see the exact same list 3 times. Okay, got the application running. I've got the total number count listed here, so let's press enter, and let's see what we got. So the first list comes out. I'm going to expand this so it's all in one line, and let's print it again. So now we have the second list, actors 2, same list of people, and then the third list, actors 3. So we've got the same list results, but the point of the lesson is to show you that there's more than one way to make a selection. So this is 3 different methods. We have a standard for loop with a bunch of where statements or if statements. The second one is a select statement using LINQ, and then the third one is a Lambda expression. Okay, so the next example, we're going to do filtering, but this time I'm going to come up with some kind of a wacky rule. I'm only going to show the actors that have been starred in even number of movies. So 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0, I guess, is even. So to make this one happen, we're going to create a list called actors with even numbers. And then we're going to make a for loop. So we're going to go through each item in the list, actor list. And I'm going to do an if statement to say if the number of movies that they starred in, the movie count, div 2, or is that mod 2, if that equals 0, then we're going to assume that that was an even number. And then we will add the item to the list. So when I add this one, I don't want to add the entire selection. I don't want to have all the properties. I only want to add 2 properties. I want to have the name, plus I want to add the number of movies that they starred in. And so this is maybe a shortened version, so I don't have to see all their earnings and everything else. So I will create a new object. And then we're going to print this as well. So we'll say actors with the even number of items, and then when we print it, we should see the shortened list. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. And we should see only about half of these people, I would assume. Okay, we're up and running. So I press the enter key. I get the entire list. Get the entire list of rich people again. The third one is the rich. And now the last one here, this one is going to be the people with an even number of movies. And so sure enough, it looks to me like everybody that's showing up in the list has an even number. So believe it or not, Tom Hanks starred in 44 movies. That's a lot of movies. And Bruce Willis apparently has 60. So there's your list of even numbered movie stars. So kind of an arbitrary rule, but it does show you how to do a selection here. Now we're going to go on and do these in a shorthand form. So now we're going to do the exact same query, but this time using LINQ. So for the LINQ, let's create a new list. We'll call it actors with the even number of films 2 to distinguish it from the first list. So we're going to have the LINQ language now. So we're going to say from actor in actor list, where the actor.movie count divided by 2 has a remainder of 0. Then we're going to select, and not just select the actor, but we're going to select and add a new actor. So this way we can once again show just the name and the number of movies that they starred in. And then finally, when we're done here, we will have a list that we can print. So let's copy and paste the print part, and we'll do the exact same print statement. Make sure I put in the right variable there. So it is actors with even numbers 2. Let's see, I better copy and paste so I get the right name, and we're ready to run. So let's see what happens. Okay, it looks like we got ourselves the statement's count number is 50. We've got the number of people that are in the list once, twice, and then 3 times. Now we're going to get into the even numbers. So here is the first even number, and then I press enter again, and there is the second number with all the even number of movies. So it looks like the LINQ and the for loop are both doing the same thing, one different syntax than the other. All right, now the third way that we're going to do this selection is go back to the Lambda expression. So for our Lambda expression, we're going to define a new list, and we are going to say this comes from the actor list dot where. And inside the parentheses, we're going to create a Lambda function. So my Lambda function is going to say item A, or actor, I'll use A for actor, is going to be selected when movie count %2 equals 0. So divided by 2 equals no remainder. And then we're going to have a selection statement. Inside the selection statement, I'm going to make another Lambda expression. So we're going to say that X, this time is just a random variable I'm choosing, X is going to be a new actor, where the property name equals x.name and the property movie count is x.moviecount. And then once more, we're going to try to print this thing, so we should see a copy and paste. So let's make sure that we get the variable name correct in the parameter and then run it. And there should be no surprises here. Okay, so we got the first thing running. We got the rich actors 1, rich actors 2, rich actors 3. Now we get into the list of evens. So there's the first even, there's the second even, and then the third one even. So we're just looking at the same list 3 different times, but we are printing we're selecting in different ways. All right, let's make another example here. We'll call this thing example number 3. And this time I want to use LINQ and other types of filtering to find all of the actors who starred in a Star Wars movie. So that seems to be pretty typical for rich actors. So for this one here, I'm going to make a variable called Star Wars Actors 1. So we'll make 3 of these. I think we'll probably demonstrate each of the type of filtering. So this first one here, we're going to create as an item called Star Wars Actors, and we're going to go through the foreach loop. And so for this foreach loop, we're going to look for any movie or any actor whose top movie contains the word Star Wars. So there's multiple types of Star Wars movies, but we just need to find this substring of Star Wars. Then we'll add it to the list, and then when we're done, we will have a new actor. We're going to add a new actor that only has the 2 properties of name and the top movie name. So we can ignore all the rest of the stuff here. We're just going to filter out those 2 properties. Then once again, we're going to go through the for loop and print each of these. So we will have a print line coming up here soon. And so the right line statement is going to say actors whose names appear, or actors that appear in Star Wars. Now, it occurs to me that I have an extra new line statement that seems to be unnecessary here. So I'm going to go back into the actor object here, the object class, and delete the new line character. So let's see if we can get all of the actors that appear in Star Wars. Let's run the application. So once again, we're going to get the application running. We're going to go through all of the different processes that we've already done. So the first one, I believe, was the rich actors. And then we'll print it again with a different type of searching. And the third one using the other Lambda expressions. The next one shows the even number of movies. We'll go cycle through these. So we got 3 different versions of that search. And now we get to the Star Wars movies. And so we can see that there looks like there are 3 different people that appeared in Star Wars. So we got that first one done using the for loop. Now you've kind of seen the pattern of what we've been doing. So we want to create a list of the same movies here, the people that use Star Wars as their top grossing movie. But this time we're going to use LINQ. So now you've seen a few LINQ examples. Let's pause here, see if you can do the LINQ on your own. And then if you want to see how I did it, you can come back. So pause the movie, create a LINQ sequence to create Star Wars actors, and then check it out. Okay, so if you want to see how I did it, let's go through the steps here. So I'm going to create a new list. I'm going to call it Star Wars Actors 2. And then we're going to go through a LINQ statement. So we're going to start with from actor in actor list. Now actor can be any variable name you like. It doesn't have to be actor. We're going to say then where the actor.topmovie.contains Star Wars. So just like we did before with the contains statement. And then we're going to select a new actor. That actor that we're going to create is going to only have two properties. It's going to have the name property and it's going to have the top movie property. And both of those come from the item that we selected in the list. Lastly, let's print these. So let's go ahead and copy and paste the statements for printing. And I'm going to change the statement for what we're printing to actors that appear in Star Wars movies via LINQ. I'm going to test it out now. Let's see what happens. And let's hopefully get the same list of people using two different methods of selecting. So let's cycle through here. We got the rich actors 3 times. Then I go to the next one, which is the even number of actors, the second one with even numbers, third one with even numbers, and now we get finally to the Star Wars. So Star Wars, we have the first list and the second list, and they both appear to be working. So now you have two different choices for how you want to do selections, one using a regular for loop going through a list, the second is through LINQ. They both work the same way. LINQ, however, is the way that a lot of people are working in C#. The next one we're going to try is the Lambda expression. So let's do the same thing here for a challenge. I'm going to give you the statement that says, let's do the Star Wars actors, but this time using a Lambda expression. So pause the movie, test it out, see if you can get the same list, and if you want to see the results, come back here. So here we go. This is the solution. We're going to make a new list called Star Wars Actors 3. And we're going to start with the actor list statement, dot where. Inside the where, we can create a Lambda expression that will filter out all of the people that we want, or all the movies that we want. So this is going to be some variable. I'll call it A for actor. And then topmovie.contains Star Wars is the expression that we're looking for. That's what we're trying to search on. And then we're going to select a new item. And we want to make the items only have two properties, again, just to match the other two queries that we did just a minute ago. So we will ask for the name and the top movie to be selected. Then once again, we'll print it. So go ahead and copy and paste from the previous statements of how to print this. And in the print statement, I'm going to say via Lambda. Let's see if this works. I'm going to run it again and hopefully have the same results. Okay, so I'm going to cycle through each of these. I'm going to press enter a few times to get down to the lists here with Star Wars. So here is the first Star Wars list, the second Star Wars list with LINQ, and the third one with Lambda expressions. And fortunately, they all do the same thing. So we've got 3 different ways to do the selecting. Okay, so I've given you 3 different ways that you can do selections. So you've seen one what we would call just the standard for loop. The next one is using LINQ, and the third one is using Lambda expressions. You're going to see all 3 of these types used in your programming, and it becomes more of a personal preference or the way that the convention is that whoever you're working with is conducting these. All right, now we're going to do something that is really easy to do in LINQ, but not so much in the other methods where you're just doing for loops. What I'm going to do now is group objects together. So I want to put actors together that appeared in the same movie. So what this is going to look like is a group modification in the LINQ statement. So let's start with group by movies is our list name. We're going to go through each item in the list. So we're going to say for each actor in the actor list. Then we're going to say group the actor by. And then we're going to say the top movie that they're in. And then we're going to save that group as something called new group. We're going to order it, and we're going to specify something called the key, which is automatically placed on this group. So the computer generates this key. It's a unique number. Then we're going to go through each item in that new group, in that subgroup of clumped movies, and then print out each actor. So we'll select each actor, and once again we'll use the name and the top movie as the properties that we're really interested in. So it'll be interesting to see what this does. So let's print it. We'll copy and paste the print statements, and hopefully we see some groups. Now by this time I've been doing a lot of printing, so I'm going to shorten this up here. So I'm going to comment out all the previous things that we've been working on, so that way I don't have to go through the list anymore. So I'm going up to line 68, or let's see, where was it? 88 is where the list has been defined. So I'm going to put in a diagonal and then a star, which begins a comment block. And you can see all the text turns green. I'm going to go down to where the part in grouping is. And let's see, I'm going to put in the grouping area right here. So we're going to do the opposite end. And so everything in between is now commented out. Oops, you can see I have an error. It looks like I forgot to change the name of the list that I'm printing. I want to print the group by movies people. And let's try that again. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I got the 50 count, it looks like. And now I have a list of groups. Let's see what the group looks like. So it's printing everybody. But you can see that the groups are together. So we can see Age of Ultron are both together here. Catching Fire, it appears like there were 4 people in this list. And then Dead Man's Chest is 2. So the groups of people are certainly showing up. Now here's a challenge. Can you group just the Star Wars people and put them in their groups? Let's see if we can do that. So if I wanted to just select the Star Wars people, I could insert a where statement in here just before the group statement. So we're going to just show the Star Wars people and then group them by their movie. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we got the count of 50. And then you can see that we have 3 people grouped together under Star Wars. Let's say I want to make it a little bit more broad. So we're just going to select any movies that have the letter S in it. So I'll change Star Wars to the letter S. And now we should see more than just Star Wars. So I'll try it again, and sure enough, we see American Sniper, Shrek, The Force Awakens, and Toy Story. So once more, we're getting the groups, and we're also selecting just for certain amounts of movies. All right, now let's try to do the same thing. We're grouping people, but this time we're going to use a Lambda expression instead of LINQ. So for this one, we're going to call it Group 2, and we'll create another section from the actor list. So we're going to first of all say Group By. And I'm going to use the variables A, B, C, D as we progress through this. So A is going to be selected by the top movie. Then we're going to group it by the key value. So the key value is an automatically generated value of each group. And then we're going to select many, which is the next item. So select multiple items. And so we're just going to have C, arrow C, which is going to select all the properties. And then we're going to say select each one of those as an item. We'll call it D. And that's going to be generating a new movie object inside of there. So we got A, B, C, D, and we're going to have hopefully the same selection as we did before. Okay, so now I'm using Group 2 as my selection, so I'm going to copy and paste Group 2 over top of this print statement, and let's see what the results look like here. So it'll be a little bit different because the first item was only selecting for the letter S, and now we're selecting for all of them. Okay, so we're ready to run. Let's go ahead and cycle through here. So the first one is grouped by movie. These only have the letter S in the title. The second one includes all movies. But we should see that the people are grouped together in the same cluster when we have a matching title. So you can see that Catching Fire has 3 together, and that shows us that we're clustering or we're grouping people by the top grossing movie name. Okay, so now that you've had some experience with this, I'm going to give you some challenges, so figure these out on your own. So first of all, let's try to do all 3 different types of selecting for each of these challenges. So the first one uses a for loop, the second one uses LINQ, the third type of challenge is using Lambda expressions. So the first challenge, and we want to do all 3 of these types of selections, are to show the actors who are poor. So what is a poor actor? I defined a rich actor as somebody over $400 million. There's probably there's some list borderline in there for poor. So you decide which poor is and you set it up. So first of all, use a for loop to select the poor people. Then use a LINQ statement to select the poor people. And then third, use a Lambda expression to find all these poor actors. Run the program to make sure it's working. Take a screenshot of it and then paste it into a Word document and show it to me. So this, of course, applies to the people that are taking my course in person at Grand Canyon University. If you're just watching on YouTube, kind of watching over on my shoulder, then you grade your own. The second challenge here is to use your own rule in selecting actors. So I want you to try out something creative. So choose some characteristic. So we've got lots of things to choose from besides the titles and the top grossing movie and the number of items that they're in. So some kind of a combination of that, and run a query using your own criteria. Describe what your criteria is supposed to show and then demonstrate that it actually worked. So you can use either lambdas or links or the for loops, whichever one appeals to you and whichever one works the best for you. So try these challenges out. The best way to become familiar with these is to practice them. So here's your chance. Practice and see if you can meet your own goals. So thanks for watching. I know this is a long movie, but this kind of gives us a view into some of the tricks that make for efficient programmers. So thanks for watching. Let's move on, do some more stuff with C#.